Hello, welcome back to Bald and Board Games. I'm Bald.
I'm bored.
And we are going to be teaching you a doozy. So hang tight. We're teaching you how to play Weather Machine.
I don't think it's a doozy. It's more of a drowsy. Or drizzly.
Drizzly. Now, this is a large game with a lot of pieces and a lot of things you can do. So this will take a minute to go through, but we will have chapters put in place. So as you reference this, you can hop to the area that you need to go to. We're not gonna lie, we do have our handy little cheat sheets here to keep us organized as we go through. Ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, so I'm gonna give you the game overview first. On the front of the cover, they have a nice little story, but here's the gist of what this game is. In Weather Machine, you take on the role of one of the scientists working with Professor Latif. You must manage your own laboratory, acquiring vouchers to spend in other locations, building bots, acquiring chemicals, and increasing the size of your workshop where you will store resources and build prototypes. Once you have conducted enough research in a particular type of weather, you want to publish a paper on the subject and then build a prototype to help fix some of the extreme weather caused by experiments made by Latif's flawed weather machine. The research into those flaws will lead to breakthroughs that will help humanity to fix extreme weather forever, getting you awards and possibly a Nobel Prize. That is the gist of Weather Machine. So
none of us have ever got the Nobel Prize yet. We've gotten close.
Yeah, definitely gotten close, but not quite there yet. One move away, always.
Yeah, it's always one last move we needed. Yeah. So here on the board, as you can see from this image, there's a lot of things. So we have player boards, we have the main board, we have some stuff on either side.
Yeah.
So we're going to start off, we're just going to kind of give you a vast overview of the different sections of the board. And then as we progress and go through the rounds, we'll actually talk about what each of them do, how to set them up, etc. So starting at the top left, you have your round track. So it goes across the whole top, it goes across the whole bottom. You'll start with little indicators on 0. Right under that, you have 3 other tracks. So we have our government track, we have our lab track, and we have our R&D track. As the game progresses, you'll be moving your tokens across that as well. And then directly corresponding to those 3 tracks are their own sections. So we have the government section, which takes up all of this. We have the lab section here, and then we have the R&D section. At the very bottom, we have Latif's little office sector here. We have the supply area with chemicals and everything else that you can do in the supply section, so it's pretty much the whole bottom line. And then off to the side of the table, we have excess gears. We have some of our excess warehouse pieces. Nope, not warehouse pieces. Workshop. I was close.
Yep.
Other tokens and things that we use in the R&D phase.
Yeah. So going a little more in depth here on the actual main board setup. We'll start in each section and kind of work our way around. So first up is this supply area, which is this whole spot down here. So you have your turn order, which will be determined randomly. And you have your initiative order, which will match the turn order that was determined randomly. And then you'll place your scientists down in that same turn order, and Latif will go down in the supply area as well to start. Next, you're going to place down each of these chemical pawns on their matching spots, so green for green, white for white, so on and so forth, all the way across. The areas are all the same, so it doesn't matter where you put them as long as they match their colors. And then over here for the workshop space, you're going to take the stack of workshop tiles, shuffle them up, deal out 4 face up. Then you're going to split each of these decks, and you're going to have 1 face down and the other stack face up. And that is the supply area. Very simple to get set up and get going. Next on number 2 here, location 2, we have our government area. So we have the government weather breakthrough pawns that you have over here, these 3. So you're going to have those there. You have your tokens for your research here. There are 2 of each, which you'll stack on their corresponding section. And you have all of these little tokens and tiles. So you're going to mix these up randomly and put them out in a random order on each spot.
Always blue side up.
Always blue side up. Yep. Correct.
Moving into the center, we have our lab area. So our lab area, again, you have those same tokens. They're just colored to match the lab. So they're this like offset green, whatever we want to call that color. Directly above, because we're playing a 2-player game, Latif has his bots helping us out a little bit. So there'll be 5 bots, all that look similar to our player bots. They'll just go on the bottom row of the different lab markers. Up here at the top of the lab, we have our weather situations. So the weather situations are a stack of tiles here. We'll go over how to set those up in a minute, but those will get laid out here. And then you have his little assistant helper, which will come down into play as well based on how that stack gets set up. And then the final set for R&D in section 4, same thing, bunch more tiles, all pink in color this time. And we set up 2 because it's a 2-player game. You have all of your R&D markers here that you can do as you progress your turns and do the different actions. And then you have your different weather tiles here, one that matches each of the appropriate weather conditions listed here. And you're going to look for level 1. So each of these have a level 1. Off to the side, we have levels 2 and 3. So it'll be highlighted by the little red markers. The levels 2 and 3 will come into play as the game progresses.
I will. So then some miscellaneous things on here. So you have your machine parts down the side. We have some tokens on spaces here. We have a black token here. You can kind of see it. And it's on the 3rd rightmost space because you're playing a 2-player game. In a 3 or 4-player game, you would not have those tokens on there. And then, of course, we have more tokens down here. Those are the investments, awards, and citations. But before we move on, let's go over how to set up that pile.
Sure. So setting up the center pile for the lab. So let's move this guy off to the center for a second. So similar to the setup here, we have level 3, level 2, level 1. So each of these has a stack of 5. What you're going to do is you're going to take the stack of level 1s, you're going to shuffle them, and you're going to put them face up in a pile. You're going to take the set of 5 level 2s, shuffle them, put them face up in a pile. The level 3s you're going to shuffle and only take 2 out and put them face up. Then you're going to put the level 2s on top, the level 1s on top of that to make your starting deck. So 1s and 2s will always be the same 10 you'll see, just different order. Level 3, you'll have some that you won't see, or you will see in this game that you won't see in different games. You'll then take the top 4. You'll take 1, place it here, 2, 3, and then the 4th one will go directly underneath, face up. Once you've laid out those 4, this little assistant is going to match this location here.
Is it
right?
No, it's top of the deck.
Oh, top of the deck. Good call. Top of the deck. So snow. So snow there. We put them in the snow location here. That'll indicate that the first weather machine attempt will be in the snow location. Mm-hmm. We also have down here Latif's lab. Is this marked for you or for me?
No, because there's no setup for Latif's lab. If you want to explain it, go for it.
We'll save it for end of round.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So that's the board setup. There's a lot of components on here, but it's fairly quick to set up. Just putting out a bunch of tiles is really all it is. Nothing super complicated. Just put them out where they match. So after that, we do have our player board. So I'm going to give you the overview. Then Steve's going to tell you how to set up the players and what they have. So on the player boards, they're all separated into sections. So down the left side here is where you would be putting your subsidies, which are these tokens up here. As you get them, you take those, place them off to the side like that. When you use them, you would flip them over and keep them there. You can only ever have a single type of each subsidy down the side, and it is unlimited. Even though there's spaces here for 6, you can have as many different subsidies and investments as you can. Investments also would go over here like such. Here we have your bots. So as you build them, you'll be taking them off and putting them in your different areas over here in your workshop and then out. And we will go over building bots when we go over the supply actions. In this section here, with these dials, you have your vouchers, which Steve will tell you how to set those up. Down here at the bottom is where your goals will go, which Steve again will cover how you get goals and what those are. And here you have your office before, when you get tokens from like the research, these books or awards or citations, they go here before they get moved into your actual library, which is this area over here. You're going to be collecting these books, which will allow you to publish your findings, which will lead to breakthroughs later on. And as you continue over, lastly, you have your workshop area, which is where you'll be placing these tokens as you get them. And we will explain placing those tokens when we go over the supply area as well. So how do we get set up?
So setup very simple. So the only simple thing about this game is setting up your player board. Everything else is super complex. So in the box, you'll have a little tray just like this. It'll have all of your pieces for the color that you've chosen. So mine's purple, Nick is red or orange.
Yep.
Let's say red. So you'll have all of the purple pieces for mine. So you pour them all out. You should have 12 bots lined up, 3 in each grouping.
We're different people. So Layers, your bots are all like facing each other. Mine are facing the same way.
Yeah. Yours are like ready to march. Yeah. Mine at least talking to each other and have a conversation. So you have your 12 bots. You'll probably have an extra one since it's a Lacerda game.
Yep.
You'll have medium-sized little cylinders. Those will go on the spot that has a little dotted circle. So 4, 1, 1, 1, and 2. You'll also have very thin-looking discs. Those just stay for this type of game right in your little tray.
And I got this game with everything already in it, so I think those thin discs are for the expansion, like the Saboteur thing. So if you don't have them because you only have the game by itself, don't worry, you're not missing any parts. That just means they're part of the Saboteur and the expansion stuff.
Yeah. You'll have your little lightning symbols here. That is your breakthrough symbol. Those will just get listed again on the little dotted circle. For your goals, as Nick mentioned, which are these 6 spots right here, you could have 2 options here. Really 3, because we decided to add a different option because we're Nick and Steve. So option 1 is there's 4 sets of 9. Each of them have a little symbol. So I have triangles. Nick has circles.
Yep.
So you can just grab one of those 4 or randomly choose one of those 4 for each player, and you get all 9 based on that symbol.
And it might be hard to see because I know that the bottom of our board.
But yeah.
But the color-coded
markers there. The second way is you lay out all of them, which there's 4 sets, circle, square, triangle, and plus sign.
Yep.
So you can lay all of them out like such, and then just pretend there's 2 more on top. And you can draft, where I would pick one out of the blues, Nick would go and pick one of what he wants, and then we'll go back and forth until we have 1 set of blue, 1 set of purple, 1 set of green. The third way you could do it, if you feel like going crazy, is draft 1 by 1. So you go back and forth drafting 1 by 1 until you have 3 out of the blue, 3 out of the green, 3 out of the pink. But those goals will be things you'll look at throughout the game. This game has a very hefty player rate of 8 pages. On the back 2 pages, you will have a full explanation of what all of these tiles do. So you'll just keep track of them as you progress the game and hopefully be able to get points. The last thing over on the right-hand side, as you get player setup started, you're randomly going to receive a gear.
Yep.
So you take one of each gear, kind of shuffle them up, grab one out of it, and see what you got. You'll also get one randomly off the top of the workshop deck, and that will go into any of these 3 spots. Could go either direction. Once you've placed it, it is stuck there.
Yep.
So pay attention to what your symbols are. Pay attention to kind of where you want it. Obviously, the first one, I would just recommend throwing it right in the center. The rest is going to matter as you progress the game.
Roger.
All right. Heading into... I'm heading into, actually, what the vouchers are. So... Vouchers are this.
Like I said, we have cheat sheets off to the side to keep ourselves straight for you all.
Yes, vouchers are the center section right here, listed as number 3 on your player board. What a voucher is how you do your actions. So as you travel to the supply, to the government, to the lab, to R&D, you have to pay vouchers to do these different things. So just right in front of me, as you can see here, this has a little symbol of the same marker that is of that location. This one has 1 down arrow. This one has 2 down arrows. That means I would have to pay 1 or pay 2 vouchers equivalent to match that. This game, shown here right above the vouchers, does have abilities, though, where you can pay 3 vouchers, so any 3 vouchers, to actually get a free voucher of a different type, specifically science, which is a wild voucher. So if you knew you needed 2 for the government, you only had 1, you can pay 3 out of supply, gain a science, and offset the cost that way. Vouchers, on top of being used, can be earned a variety of ways as well. So you'll see throughout a bunch of different things, including traveling to locations, you can earn more vouchers, as well as selling chemicals and a few other things that the game will explain as you progress.
Cool. All right, so Steve mentioned the workshop and placing down these workshop tiles. So you'll see on the workshop tile, there's half circles on one side or the other. When you place a workshop tile in your workshop, it can go in any of the 3 sections. You can never have a workshop that's higher than 3 tiles. So this is as high as it can go, but you can have as many of these stretching out as you would like. And you may end up wanting a long workshop later on when it comes to certain actions. So you can do this. But once you put a workshop tile down, you cannot move it later on whatsoever. Also, a workshop tile, when being placed down, the circle has to match the other circle that it's being attached to. So here you can see I have a white matched with a peach. Can't do that. Instead, what I can do, if I were to have bought this workshop tile first, I can place that there, creating that full green circle. Again, workshop tiles cannot be moved once they're placed. So that is there from now on. That is now a chemical spot. And so the workshops are used in a variety of ways. They are used to house your bots, your gears, which are machine parts, and your chemicals. So these first areas here, this first section can hold any gear and only any gear. This top section can hold any chemical. This bottom section can hold a bot. Afterwards, every single tile you build can hold either a gear or it can hold a bot. And that's denoted by the shapes on the tile. To house chemicals, that's what those circles are for. So as you see here, this green circle means I can house that green chemical and only that green chemical there. So when you build out your workshop, you're going to make sure that you're strategically planning which tiles go where, so that way you can house more and more of these chemicals as you go. In your workshop, however, you can, at any point in time, swap your stuff around. So let's say I had some other gears in here, and I needed to move some stuff around. I was doing something where I needed gears in a row. I can, in turn, take this bot, and I can put that chemical there, and I can put the bot right up there. What you cannot do is you cannot switch this chemical here for that one there, because that's not a blue spot. Can't put a blue chemical there. It's pretty much the workshop.
Yeah. So since Nick brought up chemicals and machine parts, or the gears, there are 2 other executive actions. So I start off mentioning how you can pay 3 vouchers to get a science voucher, which is the wild voucher. You also can pay similarly for gears and chemicals. Mm-hmm. So I can pay 2 of any voucher or 1 of 2 different vouchers to get a new gear. So if this blue gear, I'm like, don't really need it. You can swap it out with any other color available. Additionally, you can do the exact same thing, pay 2 of 1 or 1 of 2 different vouchers to swap a chemical. But, to Nick's point, I cannot swap this green for a red because it's a green circle. You can only swap this one to match something that's there, or if, for example, he had another location here that was empty, he can swap this one out and place the other one there. So if there's a red circle here, a white circle, there we go.
Readily available.
If there was a white circle here, you can pay this one, swap it, and grab a white. And then this just goes back to the general supply. So pay attention to those executive actions. For our game, they 100% came in handy.
Yes.
Where you might think of one move, it doesn't work out, so you have to do something else, and you need a different set of gears or chemicals to be able to do that.
Yeah, they definitely come in handy for sure. Key note for those executive actions is you can only do that when you need that specific chemical, gear, or voucher.
Yes, yeah. If you're trying to
keep on reminding.
Yeah, if you're trying to like prep for 2 turns ahead and you're like, oh, I really need vouchers of this type, you can't just all of a sudden do it. You can only do it when the scenario is readily available.
Correctamundo. All right. So now we have the funding tracks. So Steve pointed these out earlier. Above each section is its own funding track. So government, lab, R&D. And they all function similarly, but slightly different. So we'll start with the government, pretty simple. So on the funding tracks, at the top you have CP, which are climate points, essentially your victory points, as they are called in other games. And they're in purple because those are scored at the end of the game. And we'll go more in depth on that. For right now, all you need to know, though, is what's on the bottom of these tracks. So when you move from where you're at to another section, if it's empty, nothing happens. The moment you move onto a section where there is something below the track, for the government track, you're going to get this benefit and every benefit that came before it. So here, I'm going to get any chemical of my choice, provided I can put it on my workshop, as we just explained, and any one voucher, which is, Steve just explained the vouchers and what those are used for, so choose wisely. And so continuing up this track, if I continue going, once I get to here, this means that I can advance any track, so government, lab, or R&D, 1 space, and I can do chemical and a voucher. As I get up here, you get to do the construct a bot action for free, but abiding by the rules of which ones you can construct, and we'll go over constructing a bot in a moment. And again, everything that came before it. And then here, once that gets there, that means I would get 3 CP. And again, everything that came before it. For the lab track, whenever you move, you're always going to have some kind of benefit. So here, you have a bunch of +1s, +2s, 3s, 4s, and a 5. What this means is when you're on a space with a plus mark, so this says +1, that means on either the government or the R&D track, you can additionally take a benefit that corresponds to the space 1 away from where your thing currently is, as if your token had been there. So this can come in handy, especially on the government track, where we'll say my token is here. I just moved onto this +1 spot. I don't get anything specifically for this track, but I can choose one of those to move ahead by 1 in an imaginary sort of way. So here, I'm going to say, okay, cool. I'm imagining this guy moved here, so that means I would get this benefit and everything that came before it. When you move onto a space that has the science symbol and the +1, you get both those benefits. So this means you get a science voucher on your track, so you tick up 1 on your science voucher, and you would get to do the same +1 action on one of the other 2 funding tracks. Now, as you get higher up here, you'll get higher plus marks, so +3, +4, so on and so forth. So if I was on this +4, I would get this bot action if I chose the government track and everything came before it. Or over here, it doesn't really add up to anything, so nothing would happen there. I would also get the science voucher and every science voucher that came before it. So here I would get 3 science vouchers in addition to whatever bonuses over there. So with that lab track, you can really stack a crazy combo of repeating actions as you do this to push something forward, to push that forward, to do this again to push something forward, and it just keeps going. If you want to see this happen, go watch our playthrough because Steve did just that. We kind of lost where we were for a moment. We got tangled in the weeds of his turn. Lastly, we have the R&D funding track. So this one functions in a similar way to the government track, but slightly differently. So as you move ahead on the R&D track, same thing happens. You'll get the benefit below. But as you move further down, you get a choice. You can either take the benefit directly below your marker or any one benefit that came before it. So unlike the government track where you get that benefit that your marker is above and everything that came before it, here you have to choose. Do you want that benefit or something that came beforehand?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to add on the funding track?
No, like you said, it is really, I explain this game as a game of chess.
Yeah.
Where, like, literally, you're looking 4 moves ahead, you're stacking different moves on top of each other. So, as Nick mentioned, I did that exact same scenario in our playthrough where I made one move, I moved up one funding track, did a bunch, used it to move up, and then did it all again, and did it a third time, and ended up taking a huge advantage because of that.
It did. Yeah, it was a very good move. And if you can find a way to do that, it's going to be... It takes a minute to kind of wrap your head around the order of operations. Our advice is take the things that are singular first. So take your voucher, take your chemical, take your bot, if it's something simple, because usually that moving of another funding track up will trigger things to happen again. Yes. If you do it a certain way. So we would usually save that for the last thing we did, because it probably would push you through once again.
And you have to finish your set of funding track actions before, even though you moved ahead one, you have to finish what you were doing first, then do it again. Exactly. But it doesn't matter the order, as Nick mentioned. So there is scenarios where, again, if you don't have space in your board down here, like, for example, if I have my board right here, I only have space for one thing. I may want to grab that bot and put that bot here before somehow I get a gear that would then prohibit me from putting the bot down. So you definitely want to pay attention to, like, what's going where. To plan out, do you need gears? Do you need bots? Do you need chemicals?
What you do. All right. So that's the setup. That's the kind of like the overview of what those sections are. So now we're going to get into how you actually play. So each round consists of 3 phases. Phase A, which are the players taking their turns, so moving and doing all of their stuff. Phase B, after everyone has taken their turn, is trying to run the weather machine, and that's dictated based on this little assistant guy here, and we'll cover that in a moment. Phase C is the end of round stuff. Simple, it's just adjusting turn order and some stuff with Latif regarding income, depending on where he is.
All right. So we'll start with Phase A. It's a good place to start. So Phase A, as I mentioned, will be what you're doing. So that's the main majority of the time in this game is in Phase A. So to start Phase A, you're able to...
Actually, before we begin to Phase A, we have the post-setup supply.
That is true.
Yeah.
You want to go for it?
Sure. the post-setup... So once you get set up, before you actually even jump into those phases, you have your post-setup supply phase. So what this means is everybody can take this supply action here to buy bots and buy workshops and adjust initiative and buy chemicals. And you do the same way you would for a normal supply location, which we'll cover in a moment, paying your vouchers and collecting your items. After everyone has done that, so there's no movement in that point, and you're doing it in turn order, once everyone's gone through that phase, that's where we jump into the player turn.
Yes. And I honestly think, at least in the way I play games, if I am going into the supply phase as the second person or the last person, I was saying a 2-player game, so I'm going second, I would never not do the change initiative. I would always guarantee myself to go first for the next round.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you want to use your supplies on, because it does cost you 1 supply to change.
Sure, but then because you can't come back to the supply location because you're already there. You have to go somewhere else. And
I forget if you covered this. Remember, the science vouchers are a wild, so they can be used as any other voucher. So it says you start off with 4 supply, but you technically start off with 6.
Yeah, you could use those too.
Yeah.
I would always want to go first heading into that first round.
I agree. Yeah, and there's a reason for that.
Yes, there is, which we will get to when we go through all of these different sections.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about what do you do before you actually start moving your character around. And that is subsidy and investments. So as Nick mentioned, along the left-hand side here, you can have these little investment tiles. You can have the subsidies once you do that government action, start collecting them. And before you do anything else in your turn, you can start off by using them. So if you have a subsidy, which are these 15 markers over here, you can take one, if it's off to your player board, and flip it. And you'll just do the action. All of those actions are listed, again, in this nice handy-dandy player aid. Right on the back, it'll tell you exactly what to do. For the investment tiles, they can do 2 things. Number 1 is you can take any of your goal tiles, discard the investment to put it on. If you put it on, if you put it down at the bottom, you can achieve a gear, and you pick any random gear. If you put it on the top, you can either go up in any one voucher or get a chemical of your choice.
Well, the gear doesn't have to be random, though.
No, I didn't say any random.
You did. You said pick any random gear.
Pick a gear that you want. Not randomly pick a gear, but pick any gear.
That would change the game entirely. We should play that way. Every time you gain a gear,
random.
You just random.
Chemicals, gear, everything. The only requirement here is blue must go in blue, green in green, pink in pink. So you have 3 of each. You can only place 2 down. And when you use that investment tile to do this, you can only place 1 down. You can't place as many as you want. You can only place 1. Let's say I already had 1 down and I had an investment tile. I could also spend this to flip it. By flipping it, I can still achieve this goal at the end for endgame scoring, but I now get the ability to move my whatever track equivalent, so in this case, government track, up by 1. So again, here's a really good way to start your turn before you even moved and your opponent saw what you're doing. If I was sitting, for example, right here, I can move myself up 1, get a bot that could trigger something else, do that action as well, all before I even move to start my turn. So that is what you'll do to start your turn. Again, the subsidy or the investment. You cannot do both, just one. Once you've completed that, you now move your scientist. That is this lovely looking fella here with a lab coat on.
Or lady, we don't know.
A little brolic. Brolic?
What does brolic mean?
Oh, I was like, brolic.
Brawny, you mean?
No, brolic.
What's brolic?
You're built. It's a word.
Is it? Oh,
yeah.
okay. Don't know the word.
Yeah. It's a brolic. It's like belt. But
all right.
Back to the point of weather machine.
Move it.
So for your scientist, on round 1 only, you have to travel to 2, 3, or 4, and you have to travel to the center black space in a 2-player game. Only for round 1. Once you've achieved round 2 and started round 2, you can move anywhere and you can move to any space. So let's just say, for example, I decided to move over here. That would be my move. We'll then go through when we get to the actions on how to do that. But you can move your scientists from any one location to another. You cannot move side to side. You'll then, once you've gone there, we'll do your actions, which we'll go through each of these shortly. You'll go through, pick what action you want to do, pay the costs, get the benefits. And then the final piece of the round is your little research tokens, where the research token will come out and get put into your offices based on the color, or if the reward tile, you get placed anywhere. You can place it any time.
Correctamundo. All right, so Steve alluded to moving. So like you said, the first round in a 2-player game, you can only move to that middle spot. In any other player game, the rule of thumb essentially is you just can't move to the leftmost spot. That is locked down the first round. So when moving, each spot is going to net you different benefits. So when moving to the government spot, you're going to get lab vouchers. You get 1 of them, so you increase that up. When you move to the lab, you're going to get an R&D voucher, so you move that up. And when you move to R&D, you get a government voucher, so you would move that up. If there was a scientist in the left spot later in the game, and you moved into the rightmost spot, then you would get 2 vouchers of that kind, depending on where you are. If that scientist happened to be Lative that was in that location to your left, then you would get a voucher for your normal one. 1 for him being there because he serves as a scientist in a 2-player game. And you would get a science voucher for Lative being there. In a larger player count, 3 or 4, you would only get the science voucher from him being there. Now, if Lative is in the rightmost spot and you end up here, you do not get a science voucher. He has to be to the left of you. And all of this is depicted down here on the bottom. Easy enough. If you move into the supply area and there is somebody to the left of you, this one is a little different. So you will get your regular supply voucher. You will get a science voucher if Lative is there. But for every scientist to the left of you, you have to pay them 1 voucher of any kind. So you would lower yourself down by 1, and that scientist would raise themselves up by 1. For moving, you have to move each turn. You cannot stay at the location you're in. You cannot move to a spot next to where you're at a location. You have to go from one to the other. You don't have to go to a place adjacent. You can go from, for instance, R&D all the way over to government. And you can choose if you want to go to the leftmost or the middle spot after the first round. And there is a reason to be going to one or the other. If you move to a location where Lativ is, whether on the left of you or the right of you, after you've collected your vouchers, or if you're down here, collected and paid your vouchers, Lativ will move to the next location. He will always move in order. So from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. When Lativ moves to the 1 location, nothing happens at the 1 location specifically. If he moves to the 2 location, if open, he will always go to leftmost spot. If not, then he'll go to whatever spot is open and available. And when he moves into this government location, you will be discarding one of these tiles. And this is specific to a 2-player game. In a 2-player game, he's going to discard one of these tiles based on where his assistant is. So here he would discard that tile, the snow tile. And the same goes for the R&D. If he ended up in R&D, he would discard a tile associated with where his assistant is, which is, again here, the snow tile. In larger player games, that is not the case. When Lativ moves at any point in time, you will always add a bot to this main lab area. The way you'll do this is you'll look to see where the assistant is, and if you can, you will place a bot above the assistant. And you can place it in any spot above the assistant. At the beginning of the game, like we said, they start at the bottom row here, but during the game, you can place them anywhere. And this can be a strategic thing where you know so-and-so is going to be trying to get this chemical. I'm going to put a bot there so we can't. So we won't be able to get those points.
Which we definitely do.
We definitely did that. If there's already a bot located there, you're just going to continue moving to the right and then circling around once you get to the end to find a branch with an open location to place a bot. I think that is it for moving, other than, of course, the location. Hands and oars.
Yes. So as you move, you're going to land on these different spaces, as Nick just mentioned. Mm-hmm. As you can see here in the supply section, there's 4. 4 with question marks and a little red circle and an infinity sign next to it. What that means is you can have all 4 players. So this is up to a 4-player game. All 4 players can be there. Infinity means you can do as many actions as you want. Mm-hmm. For the other 3 locations, 2, 3, and 4, there is an ampersand and a slash. The slash means you can only do action 1 or action 2. Yep. The ampersand means and, obviously. You can do 1 and 2. You don't have to do 1 and 2. You can choose to do either one.
Yep.
The cool, interesting thing about this game, nothing we needed to experience in this, but in a 3- and 4-player game it can matter, is you can travel. Let's just say, for example, we're playing a 3-player game. So this is available. So let's say I know that player 4 is up next and player 4 is sitting over here. Mm-hmm. I can travel, go here, and do no actions. You don't have to do an action. So you can just literally block the space if you'd like to. Because you know, hey, they, especially here, they want to publish a paper. You can just completely block them off.
Be a jerk move.
But yeah, you can do 0, 1, or 2 based on this one, 0, 1 here, infinity here.
Strategic jerk.
Yes, but that's definitely Nick and I's style.
It's true.
So let's start with the supply. Grouping number 1. For the supply, again, you have infinite actions. All the actions are described either on the board or on your player board with their cost and or their benefit. So just going through the lineup here, number 1 is down 1. So you have to pay 1 voucher in column 1 here, the box column, which is supply. And you get to move the initiative track, which is right there. So you can shuffle up turn order. Number 2 is a bot. You can see the question mark. That question mark is explained on your player board. You have 12 bots. Groupings 1 and 2 on the top, column 1 on the left requires you to pay 1 voucher out of supply. Column 2 on the right requires you to pay 2 vouchers, and that's listed directly above. On the bottom, you have a 2 cost and a 3 cost for those columns, but there are other requirements. This one here on the left requires you to have all 6 up above unlocked or at least 5 tiles located in your offices. The one on the right requires you to have all 9 prior to it unlocked or have 8 tiles in your offices, and then you can utilize those bots. The third thing in supply is to gain a workshop tile. It costs 1 office voucher or supply voucher, and that's what Nick kind of exampled over here, building out your workshop. Additionally, for chemicals, you can pay 1 to get chemicals in this set of 2 columns, as indicated here on the board, but once you get to the second set, it costs 2. Once you get to that very final set, it costs 3. The cool benefit to chemicals is, let's say you buy a bunch of chemicals up front, and then your opponent buys some, you can then sell the ones you had over here and gain 2 back.
Yep.
So you can buy for 1, sell for 2, because this is capitalism.
Definitely something that'll happen in a higher player account for sure.
Oh, for sure. And that would be the end of your supply actions. As we mentioned earlier, as something I was thinking of, 1, turn order, huge importance.
Yep.
But with the chemicals, the bots, the workshop, kind of as Nick displayed here, you can do that one multiple times. So the infinity doesn't mean you can do each action once. You can literally do the same action multiple times, if you like, as long as you have the vouchers to pay for it.
That's true. Additionally, so when you buy bots and you take them off your spot, you're going to have little effects that go into play as well that are listed next to them. And these are all over the board. They're the same ones you will see everywhere. And so the moment you take a bot from that spot, you will gain that benefit.
Yes. And I said the requirement for bots, there's 2 requirements. Number 1 is the bot has to be able to be placed over on your right-hand side. So you pick up the bot, you have your free bot space here, you have your bot space on any workshop tile that's not covered with machine part. So you have to be able to play the bot over here. You can't just bring it to the board because you know where you're moving. So it's a 2-step process. Also, let's say, for example, I was at the top here already of science. This was going to give me give me a lab. I can still take the bot. You don't go up any higher. You're not going up to infinity. But you can still take the bot, which you'll be able to use in your turn.
Yep, doesn't stop you. Got to build it before you can use it.
Yes.
All right. Next, we have location number 2, our government section. And here you have 2 things that you can do. Your first one over here, what's called sell a part. Your next one is to secure a subsidy. So when selling a part, so of course you have moved here, and we'll say we went to the end. First thing you do is advance your funding track. So you move it up by 1. Boop. Next, you're going to be using a bot, so you have to have a bot to do this, and you have to have a gear that matches where you're going to be placing the bot. So I have a pink gear here, and I have this bot. So I'm going to place the bot here, where that pink gear is, and then I get to choose any one of these subsidy tiles to replace with the gear. So we'll say that I'm going to take this one here, and you put the gear down, take your subsidy, place it over to the left of your board. And of course, I could have put that bot here, and I could have taken instead this subsidy and, taken that. So as long as you have the gear to exchange and the bot to put down, you can put them anywhere and take any of the subsidies. Now, if this subsidy was flipped over and was already orange, you can still do this action, but you won't be able to actually use that subsidy on a later turn. It's already been used. The government already granted it. Tough luck. That'll come into play, though, as to why you may want to take that in a moment. After taking your subsidy and placing your gear, you will get the corresponding token that is below it. And this will go into your office down here for now until the end of your turn. Over here, this action, which is the secure subsidy action, you're actually going to use a subsidy. So you don't have to place a bot down on the board when you do this. You simply find which one you want to use. Let's say I want to get another bot. And you're going to flip this over, and you're going to leave it there. That's how that one I just grabbed could have been orange to begin with. So leave that there, say I'm using it, and I'm going to take a bot and put it in my workshop, take the benefit, go through the whole course of things there. You get another benefit as well. The column header and the row header have benefits listed. You would get both of those. So for that, I would get to science. Awesome. And those are the two things that you can do in this location. Now, at the end of this section, if give me one of yours. We'll say you had one in there too. Why not?
Rude, taking all three.
If this section was filled with gears because it's filled with robots, this entire branch has been completed. The government will run its machine. When this happens, those bots stay there, but you'll score CP for each bot that's there. So I would score 6, 3 for each of them. Steve would score 3. And then the government will take one of its breakthrough tokens and place it on the corresponding tile over here, the furthest one to the left, just like so. And this happens the moment that that is completed once the turn is finished. That will run and that course of events will take place. And what that does over here is it blocks off that one spot from being able to be taken by somebody else, and it gets that weather one step closer to being resolved.
Yep. So moving on to the center one here. This is your lab. Similar to the government, there's 2 options. And one thing that wasn't mentioned, you can do them in either order. So you don't have to do option 1, then option 2.
Correct.
As long as you have the cost, actually, I did multiple times. It's more advantageous sometimes to do number 2 first, and then number 1.
Sure.
Just depending on your play style and strategy.
Yep.
So for here, we have work on experiment, and we have published paper. Work on experiment, simple. You're going to move up 1 on the track at the top, and that's going to be consistent for all of these. Number 2 is you're going to take a bot that I no longer have. We're going to act like I had one. You're going to take a bot, and you're going to place it somewhere out here. So we have a bunch of different locations. So I'm going to place it right here, and we're going to pretend I had a green requirement here. This one has a green chemical. I'm going to pay a green, and then it would come to the general supply. My bot stays down. Once I've completed that, that is complete. That's as simple as it is for work on experiment. Moving over to publish a paper, publishing a paper requires a few things. Number 1, you need to be able to have ideas for your paper. And that is these little tokens. So as Nick mentioned, you can gain tokens doing different things. As you complete that action over there, you would have gained a blue requirement. So as Nick placed his down, he got his location or research token over here. So let's just say, for example, I had these 3 here. I then can say, hey, I'm going to research a paper. I'm going to call that done. We're going to slide this to the right. We then get whatever benefit is listed here. So you'd identify the symbols and complete that benefit. You would then come back here. You would identify the symbol or matching symbol. So in this case, it was snow. This would get unlocked. So this lock would come off. In addition, if you want to pay 1 singular science, you can do that and gain 3 victory points. You also will gain victory points based on this little legend over here on how you got your paper to be published. So if you had 3 of them like this, that'd be 2 points each, so it'd be 6. If you had any award tiles, which are these gold ones, you'd get 4 instead of 2. If you had a citation, which are the black ones, you would get 0 for that tile. So you sum them up, move them accordingly. As you can see, these are gold, which means instant CP, instead of the purple, which is endgame. The last thing after you publish a paper is you're going to take an investment tile, which is one of these. And again, as Nick mentioned over the left-hand side here, these are infinite spaces. So I just kind of stack the last line is my investment tiles. Subsidies would go elsewhere. And that finishes your structure here in the lab.
How do you get citations?
Good question. Citations are awarded in a little bit different fashion. So you have 2 options here. Number 1 is, let's say I had this set up, and then let's say a few turns later I had this. I've already published this paper. So the world, the internet, knows about my work on snow. Not cocaine, just snow.
There it is. I was waiting for it to come.
Yep.
Where is it?
So what I can do is say, hey, I don't have this third blue one. Maybe it got destroyed because Latif was there and it doesn't exist over there anymore.
Yep.
But because there was similar material, I can plagiarize. No, I'm just kidding. It's called citing. You can call it citing, and when you publish the paper, you can just add that in there. That allows you to complete that step. The second way is if Nick...
There's one other... So to do that, though, you have to get rid of one of your gold tiles.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to show both ways and then say that.
No, you did it. Even if you cited it, you still...
No, I know. I was going to say both ways. Okay.
No, so even if you do it.
No, I know.
You just said you could
I was going to show both examples and then say the after effect, but...
Oh, I think...
That's fine.
Sorry. You're like, you could just take it. I was like, wait, no, you can't.
Take it to fill it in, I meant. So if you have two of an already published paper, you can take a citation, place it in. You do have to get rid of one of your goals. This can be very advantageous because you only have 6 goal spots, 2 for each color. So if there's one, you're like, no, I'm not going to bother focusing on that. And usually citations won't come into the second half of the game anyway. You'd be like, okay, get rid of that. I don't care. You get your citation. The second way to get a citation would be the other player. Yeah. So if I had these already published, Nick had 2 listed out here, he can be like, hey, I read your paper. I'm going to take a citation. And then
oh, no.
add it in.
Yep. I'm going to plagiarize off you.
So that step is something that was added into the game. We played another game. Oh, Distilled has a similar style where you can make like copycat wine. No, it's not Distilled.
No,
it's
Age of Comics.
Age of Comics. Age of Comics where you can make a faux comic book.
Yep.
So I kind of like that style. Mostly because of Latif, that he can get rid of one completely.
Yeah.
It still allows you to complete that publishing paper.
Yeah.
And then you have your third and final piece over here, number 4, which is the R&D.
R&D. So, R&D, again, has 2 sections like the other ones that you can do. The first one is called Research, which is this here. And again, you can do them in any order. If you're here, you're doing both of them. If you're here, you have to choose which one to do. So Research works like the other 2. You would advance yourself on the funding track by 1 to start. And then what you're doing is you're placing a bot in one of these areas. Now, if you are placing a bot down, you have to go from bottom to top. So if there's no bots here, you have to start with that bottommost. And unfortunately, it is more expensive. So to do this, I'm actually going to say I'm going to go right here. I have to use a chemical that matches the symbol. And then here, it says I can use any gear. And you'll notice on the bottom, some of these are any other chemical. So all you would do is you would just discard that other requirement. So discarding the gear, boom. And I have now completed that. So I will get the benefit listed, which here is a bot. And all the ones on the bottom are bots. So I would take my bot, unlock, boom, benefit, you know the deal. If you are putting a robot on one of the further spaces up, then all you have to do is put the bot down, pay the cost like you would, and you would gain the benefit that's there. Again, you cannot skip. You have to go bottom to top. If Steve had his here, then I could put mine there and continue up. After you do that and gain your benefit, you will take the corresponding token and place it into your office until the end of your turn, which is when you would end up putting it into your library. Over here, we have the breakthrough step. So once you have a published paper, so now, because I cited Steve, I have a published paper on snow. So I can take the breakthrough action for snow. Now, we're going to say for snow that Steve had a bot down on the bottom here, and I had one right there. I'm going to cheat and grab one of those. All right. Can you put the number 2 one on there? I want to illustrate to you the full example here. So for a breakthrough, you have a published paper ready to go. You can pay the science depicted on the bottom here to allow you to gain the benefit where you're going to place your breakthrough token. So of course, I'm going to place this on the 2 for the CP, and I'll pay a science, which will give me the 2 CP. Next, you have to deal with actually building this thing. So down on your workshop, and this is what I mentioned earlier about having a line of items and why it could be beneficial. So we're going to say I had, what do we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll say I had a total of 5 built up all the way through here. And what do we need? White, blue, what and what? For the gears? Red, red. Red, red. All right. Okay. So when you build a breakthrough prototype, you have to pay machine parts for any uncovered machine part. So this here that doesn't have a robot, I have to pay a machine part for that. So I would ultimately put this in the supply. For the prototype, I'd have to pay one for that as well. It shows white, so I have to use a white. For these two down here with robots on them, I don't have to pay machine parts because there's robots on them, but there's a benefit to doing so. So first of all, for myself, doing it is going to mean more CP. If I choose to pay one for Steve's spot, it means he does not get any CP. I'm going to get CP points for every machine part and every robot that I have in here. So it's 2 for each. So it'd be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. If I chose not to put this machine part down, of course I wouldn't get any points for that. So instead here I'm getting 2, 4, 6, 8. But in addition, Steve will now get 2 points for his robot there. So your machine part not only gets you points, but blocks another player's points. Now, important part about the machine parts being used. For creating prototypes, your machine parts have to be in the same row, aligned. If I had this red over here and this blue down here, I can't use those when constructing this. Right now, I couldn't build that prototype. I have to have at least, based on what I'm trying to build, this white and blue, the exposed machine parts, available to me to use. Good news though, you can arrange your machine parts whenever you want. So if I had a robot here, and a robot here, and one there, we'll say. We'll do this. I can rearrange this to be able to build that prototype. So I can take this robot, put it over here, put that machine part there, move this guy down, put this here, move him over there, and put that there. You can do that at any point in time. You can never rearrange your actual tiles, but you can rearrange the things on your tiles. So that way now you have your line of machine parts to build your prototype. Word of warning though, if you have a machine part in your line that is not needed for the prototype, it'll still get used, which means it'll get just discarded for no use whatsoever. So, just to recap, machine parts that have to be used are ones that are exposed. You can then pay additional ones based on where the robots are at. That'll help you earn more points and help you block points from your opponent. The parts you're using have to be in one consecutive row. It doesn't have to be in the middle, it could be at the top or the bottom, as long as they're in a row consistently. After you've done that and collected your points, you will grab an award token and place that here. This award token can be placed into your library at the end of your turn, like any other token, or you can hold on to it and place it in there at any point in time, the beginning of your turn, the middle of your turn, the end of your turn, whenever you want in the future. Whew, that was a lot. My goodness. One more thing, sorry on that. If Steve did the same thing and filled in that last spot on there, this tile would get removed and put back onto its pile over there. Steve would get his breakthrough token back. I would get mine. It goes back into your rightmost section because you've already published that paper, and now you have a new tile to continue going. If you get rid of this tile, there's just no tiles to be able to do.
It's just blank.
You have to wait until this weather thing adds more, and then you can keep going. You can never have 2 of yours on one tile. That is a no-no. You can only have 1 per tile.
Whew.
Mouthful. My goodness.
So there is, just to cover the end part,
Go for it.
there is reasons to fill up the tiles.
Yep.
So for example, you've published a paper, you're like, oh, there's only one slot left up there. Let me do this, get a bunch of CP, knowing that this tile is going to be removed, you're going to get that back, and then you can go do it again 2 turns later once you can travel back there again.
Yep.
Fun fact I would do is, let's just say this scenario existed. I did this.
Yep.
I could then go over to the government. If there's only one spot needed in this column, I can finish that. It triggers, covers this. I get this back, and then I can just hop back here next turn and do it again.
Absolutely can. Yeah, once you have your breakthrough token back, you can go back and do it. Of course, if you don't have a breakthrough token in that section, you can't redo it.
Yes.
Each time
it stays out there until that tile's gone.
Yeah. Each time you do a breakthrough action, build a prototype, you do get one of these award tokens when done successfully. The moment that you get 3 of these award tokens, you also get the Nobel Prize.
Yes. And the one very small thing in all of these pages of rulebook, it does not cover is what happens if you get the Nobel Prize and then I get the 3 award tokens. Do I steal it?
No, it says it's first person who gets it gets Nobel Prize.
He's got to shank them.
Yeah.
Take their prize away.
The first person who gets there gets the Nobel Prize because you essentially figured out this way to solve the world's weather system. And these are worth points. This is worth points at the end. So this could help you achieve it. And this came with a nice hefty coin. It's great. All right.
So, heading into the third part of the turn. So we've covered part A, which was excuse me. We covered part A, which was everything here. So moving, doing the subsidies investments, doing all of the actions, and then placing your reward or resource reward tiles down on the office spaces. So now heading into the next stage is the weather machine. So the weather machine is everything here in the center, dealing with the laboratory.
Sorry, I was going to say really quick. I said it very fast, but at the end of your turn is when you get to place your regular book tokens.
And then take the advantage if you do place it on top of something.
Yep, and you can only place those, I don't think we explained this either. You can only place per color, and you can only have the same type in each row. So I can't put this blizzard, this snow one, in the sun row. They all have to be the same because you're essentially working up to published paper. But that's where these award and citation tokens come in handy.
Although it would be kind of cool if you do sun, snow, and then rain.
Yeah.
You're like sun plus snow equals rain.
Exactly. Yeah, no. And for the citation token, you have to have at least one of the regular tokens in there, I believe.
Yes.
It said the award token, the same thing. You have to have at least one of the regular ones.
Yeah, you can't just put 3 awards in a row.
Yeah, you can't have more than 1 citation. You can only use 1 citation per row, so you have to have 2 in general. So either regular and award or 2 regulars. Right. Yep. On to the fun part.
Yeah, the weather machine triggering. So the name of the game, this is that stage. So the weather machine has a few stages. First stage is, does it run or not? So first thing you're going to do is go to the little assistant here. You're going to see what column he's in. So here, he's in the snow column. You're going to identify if any of these 3 show the snow picture. They do not, it does not run. Option 2 is if he was right here, here's the little wind section. There is a wind, but this is not completely full. So that column is missing at least 1 bot. It also does not run. So in the scenario where it does not run, whatever column they are in, the bot of Latif, if there are any, would just come out of play and move off to the side. If you have player bots like I do, I can choose to take that bot back. Again, there's limited space. So if I was sitting in this scenario here, where I had no more space for that bot, I can leave it there. Or if I take it back, it would have to go back to the supply side, which could be advantageous because then you can get it again and get that benefit, especially when it comes down here to these benefits.
It could also screw you because if you've gotten rid of all of these and now you can come down here, if you have to put one back, it blocks you again.
That's true. So there is some pros, some cons, all based on how things play out.
Yeah.
So that's in the scenario where it failed. If we have the scenario here where it was successful, there was the assist in the correct spot, there was a full listing of bots, and the symbol matched, it now runs. So for the weather machine running, it's a few steps. Step 1 is return all bots. So again, Latif's bots will go off to the side. My bot has to come back.
Yep.
I cannot choose to leave it there. Then you would go here. It says pay 1 science. I would go to my board. I would pay 1 science. I would get the equivalent amount of victory points or climate points.
Per bot.
Per bot. So in this case, I had 1 bot. I only got 2. And sign. I can choose either of these other 2 things to do. Always the right-hand side is take an investment tile. So you can just add that into your grouping. Or whatever the symbol is on the left-hand side. So you have here 2 gears, 2 gears. These are the complete this stage here. And these actually specifically say do it as normal. Some of them will show a symbol where you don't have to pay the chemical. So that would happen. Next up, you would take this tile, bring it down and out of play. You would slide these set of tiles over. The top tile would then go into the on deck circle and be ready for play. After either it did not run or it did run, what you're going to do is clean up. Like I said, move those over, make sure the bots have been removed appropriately, and then I believe that's it. Move us. Final thing I do is one more thing I was missing, and then move the assistant. So you're going to move over to the next color, and then that one for the next weather machine cycle would trigger there. This will always move to the right, and then as you can see, this arrow brings it all the way back around, and then you'll keep moving. And then weather machine will run turn after turn after turn. Once that set of tiles runs out, that is when the final one of the triggers for final endgame.
Yeah, oh, don't forget your token. When it runs successfully, you get your token.
What? You know, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only time you get these is when the weather machine runs successfully. You get a token.
Oh, good call. That is true. Yeah, so if there was tokens available, you would get a token. If there wasn't, like the snow one, you would gain the benefit, which is 1 science. Again, one fun style here is let's just go back to the setup. And let's say we were on the very last turn where all the branches would trigger. If this was sitting here, this branch would trigger. So you would do what I just did. I could then say, hey, I'm going to do this ability. I can do that ability. I can add my bot right here. It'll then go through, and now this one triggers. And you can do it again. So at the very end stage, which we'll get to and explain a little bit more in depth shortly, you can double trigger a few of these, which is a fun little thing, but we never actually got to experience that.
Yeah, it'll trigger every single one that's filled. So but during that action,
from the assistant.
Yep, you'll end up filling them potentially and just triggering a bunch of points at the end. In addition to, so when doing the weather machine, so we're here. If you have 2 tiles of the same, it's always going to be the rightmost one, and that'll be one that gets used and removed from the game before everything comes over. Boop. And that'll keep cycling. Bots will keep coming off for Latif. When Latif moves, he'll put more bots back on, just like we said previously and went over. And those rounds will just continue like that. Players will take turns doing their stuff. After every player's taken their turn, the weather machine will try to activate. And then if the weather machine can't activate, it goes into that last section of the turn. Yep,
which is just cleaning up some bots, moving things over.
It's adjusting turn order. So phase C is that end of round action.
Oh, that's after some. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Were you just anything else you're
gonna put? Oh no, it's at the end of weather machine. That's when that and then turn order. Yeah.
Yeah. So phase C is that section. So you have it's listed all here for you, but you have your initiative or your turn order adjustment based on initiative. So earlier Steve adjusted the initiative, so we would change that around. Yep. And if Latif is in section 5, which means that he would have been in 4 and someone was there and so he moved over, you would get your income for those. So income is your top section of your player board with the bots. So each section that doesn't have a bot associated anymore because you unlock them, you will gain those benefits again. And then Latif will move over to the supply section once everyone has collected their benefit, and you start again and keep on going around and around until you get to one of 3 endgame scenarios.
Yes, and it's one of 4 actually, but
4? Those
yes,
3.
there's 4.
So
there
what's
are
the
4.
4th one?
We'll be able to find out.
Okay.
So there are 4 endgame scenarios that you can trigger. So again, we mentioned at the very beginning of this video, this is not like, hey, you play 5 turns, it goes to round 2, things like that. This just keeps cycling until you trigger one of those 4. And you're guaranteed to trigger at least one of them, which is the first one I'll explain. The other 3 are much more difficult. So the first one is as you're going through this whole weather setup, if you get to a scenario where right there, you have 3 tiles out, only 1 remaining. As soon as this one triggers, these will slide over. This one goes in. That right there triggers condition number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And all 4 conditions are going to have the same after effect, which is once the condition is triggered, if there is turn portions left, you finish that turn and you do 1 final turn. Because this is the weather machine phase, the weather machine kind of is the end of the turn anyway, other than phase C down here. So you would do the initiative track and then play 1 final turn after that.
Yep.
Second possible endgame trigger is the Nobel Prize, which is this right here. Mm-hmm. So if any singular person gains 3 award tiles, they don't have to be played in the office. They could just be stacked right here.
Correct.
But as soon as they own that 3rd tile by doing the breakthrough action 3 times, they would trigger one of the conditions. So they would get this fancy little thing. Again, you would play 1 final turn. But in this scenario, let's say I was the one to trigger it. Nick can fully complete the rest of that turn, and then we play 1 more turn.
Yep.
So it does give your opponent a little bit of a chance to catch up or try to make a maneuver to gain some extra endgame scoring using goals or whatnot.
Yep.
Number 3 deals here with R&D. Mm-hmm. So if you get to an area, which is almost impossible in a 2-player game, but in theory possible, is if you have bots on all 15 of these spaces, that triggers endgame. Meaning you can no longer add bots to it, so therefore this action is not possible. Mm-hmm. You still, in theory, could do the breakout action, but according to the game book, that is one of the triggers. So if it's your turn, you went here, you place the 15th one down, you finish your turn, the other players go, and then you do 1 final round. Mm-hmm. And then the last one is on the other side. The government, if you fill in all 15 machine parts, on the government side, same thing. What is possible...
I missed that.
Yeah, it's in the little mini book.
Nice.
So it is possible. So again, you do this, fill in all 15 here, all 15 here. You finalize and bring that final tile out, or you achieve that Nobel Prize. Endgame triggers. After endgame, there is one other step, which Nick will cover, on how you can lay out your final little investment tiles and things. One other scenario is possible is, let's say that I was first. I went through. I got my 3rd award tile. I achieved the Nobel Prize. I triggered endgame. Let's say on Nick's turn, he placed the 15th tile down. He doesn't trigger another endgame and like extended another round, or then this came out and extended a 3rd round. Once it's been triggered the first time, that is the trigger. Again, you would finish your turn, you would play 1 more final turn, and then you would conclude. And then again, in that final turn, all 3 of these would trigger. Every branch would trigger. So all 5 branches would trigger.
Yep.
You're never going to have all 5 out here. There's only 3 spaces. So whatever ones aren't able to trigger does nothing. For this example here, because the branch of water triggers, it does that. This comes off. You don't trigger it again for the second water. That branch has already been triggered.
bots come off anyway, so it couldn't trigger again to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I guess in theory, if it was 2 of these, you could have that symbol that says, like, do this action and put 2 more back up, but you don't re-trigger that, at least according to how the rules are written. Yep. So, heading into endgame scoring and actually the final pre-endgame.
Yeah.
The post-game, but pre-scoring.
The pre-game.
Yeah, and then endgame scoring.
So, before you do endgame scoring, if you have any remaining tiles, any research tiles here, so tokens or awards, you can then place those out onto your board following the normal rules. Those will help you with your endgame goals. So now, when it comes to your endgame goals, if you don't have a bunch of these up here, don't worry about it. If you have investment tokens stacked up, like Steve and I do, he has 2, I have 3, you can use all of these right now for the same ways you would have beforehand. So I'm going to use 2 of these, and I'm going to place out 1 and 2. And when you place them in there, you would get the benefit like normal. So the gears, the chemicals, or the vouchers, you may need those for your endgame goals. Who knows? Steve in our playthrough needed gears, so he placed them down so he could get gears, so he could accomplish his goal with gears. But you can also use them to flip them over, which will advance your funding track, as you said beforehand, which could then lead to a series of other things that get you points and stuff. So these investment tiles at the very end could come very in handy, pushing those funding tracks up to get more endgame scoring points up here, creating more things just to happen in succession that get you more points down here, a lot of stuff. But once everyone has gone through and done those last parts, that's where we get into endgame scoring. And endgame scoring is very simple. During the game, you'll have been keeping track of your CP you've earned throughout the entire thing. Now is where you count those purple CP points. So the funding tracks all have those purple CP points listed in the top of their spaces. You're going to get the CP point that is above and or to the left of your spot. So for me here, I would get 3. I don't get 3 plus 1, I get the highest number, so I would get 3. For Steve, he's here at this 5, he would get 5. He would not get the 5, the 3, and the 1, he just gets the 5 that's right there. And the same goes for...
Just add insult to injury that you get all of it to the left as well.
That'd be terrible. So you get the number you're under or the one that's closest to you on the left. Then you have your goals that you're going to score. You'll get 5 CP per goal that you successfully succeeded at hitting. And lastly, you have that Nobel Prize, which gets whoever has it an additional 5 CP.
I will call out, this was slightly confusing the first time I glanced at these, that in the top corner of a lot of these, there will be a number. Mm-hmm. So like this one says 12, this one says 5 does not equal, things like that. All of that is indicated on what the goal requirement is. So this 12 means, oh, I need 12 different tiles in my office. To Nick's point, you only get 5 CP points for each completed goal, and the completed goal has to be in the player board.
Correct.
Not just under the player board.
Yep, and you can never swap those out, so choose wisely. Once you put them in, they're in.
Yes.
Earlier we spoke about discarding goals to get citation tiles. You cannot discard a goal from one that's been placed in your section. It has to be one that you have not currently placed. Once it's put in there, it's locked in. You're saying, I'm going for that.
Yeah.
But that is Weather Machine. It is a machine. It's a machine to explain. It's a lot to go over, but honestly, it's easy to learn, which is nice.
Yeah, we played through a playthrough a few days ago. Took a little bit at the beginning just to understand each of the different sectors. But yeah, them flowed pretty well.
If anything, it's kind of, for those who aren't used to board games, it could definitely be a paralysis by analysis situation, because like, okay, what do I do? So it's best to kind of just learn the basics of what each area you can do there. Don't learn the why you would do it, just learn what it can do, and then just jump in and play. And you'll figure out by pulling triggers and learning how stuff goes. And your second playthrough, you'll have more of a plan, and you'll be like Steve and beat your opponent by like 150 points.
And again, we have that 8-page player aid.
Yep.
The middle pages literally go over each location exactly what you can do. So although it is on the board in front of each thing, if you're playing with 4 where there's 2 people over there on the other side, they can't really see that. It's right here in the player aid. You can see both actions, exactly what happens. so you can try to like prep ahead as well.
Yeah.
The one thing I did notice, which would be fun and interesting if they added into this, is like a Slugworth thing from Willy Wonka, where I could just come in and tamper and like take one of your workshop pieces or take one of your machine parts.
Well, they have the saboteurs, and I don't know.
Oh, it is the expansion pack. That's right.
Yeah, the saboteurs is an expansion. So it says Kyarakova Inc. is out to destroy Lightning Technologies.
Ah.
They are sending 2 of their top corporate spies, known as Agent White and Agent Pink, to steal information and to disrupt Latif's work. Their plan is to embarrass him in front of the government and ensure Kyarakova will be awarded the weather control contracts in the future. Unfortunately, the company's security is too busy managing the chaos Latif's initial experiments have caused, so they'll have to complete, or you'll have to complete your work while suffering the interference from the pesky saboteurs.
We'll have to look at the expansion pack afterwards and maybe make a run.
They definitely probably come in and make things more difficult for you, which is going to be definitely fun to try and figure out, like, oh, come on, like, instead of having each other getting in the way, we have whatever these guys are getting in the way. All right. Any final words about Weather Machine?
No, I love it. To me, it's a really fun game. I absolutely love the type of games. Again, war games, anything where you have to like thoroughly sit down and like strategize out for hours is my type of game. And this kind of fit right into it.
Yeah, it's definitely more of an abstract think sort of game. The war game like Successors is definitely easier for myself to visualize. Like, okay, I need to do this to kind of surround you in like more of a war mindset. This is definitely more of that puzzly, like you said, like more like chess. There's definitely more of that stacking that happens. I've lost twice, but I've had fun playing both times. It's just a lot of fun to do things. Like, it's one of those games that's just fun to play, regardless if you're winning or losing, because you don't really get frustrated. There's really no downtime where you're really waiting for anyone to figure out what they're going to do, because while someone else is doing what they're doing, you're trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do now? You know, so it's so much fun. And then it's gorgeous.
Oh, it is, yeah. So many colors. The one thing I was annoyed at, though, color-wise, where was it? Is
the oars. For whatever reason.
No, the oars, that doesn't bother me. It was... Oh, the gears having pink and red, and then like these, they're just such, like these obviously have the symbols, so you can easily match the symbol. But pink and red there, to me, is like too close. Like, you have so many colors, like, it makes something that's distinctly different.
Well, also, the base game, they were cardboard punch-outs. This is the deluxe version where it has the metal, so it can be a little harder, but the shapes distinguish them.
Yeah, but it's not super clear here that the shapes are different.
But you don't need the gears for up there.
Not okay for over here.
Yeah, but so it is. So this is very much different than that. This has 4
but for you, you're sitting in front of it. For me, looking there, I'm like,
he's also bad with shapes.
If there was like it was like 5 distinctly different colors, it'd be like, oh, okay, boom.
I get what you're saying. Those are very close. Yeah, it could have easily been purple.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, make it a distinctly different color or black.
Yeah. Anyway, if you want to find out our true thoughts on this, stay tuned for the review, which we'll be doing when we finish all of our Lacerda games. Coming next month. We're going to do 4 more, but finishing this month, we have Inventions.
Yeah, so if you're watching this video, you're actually in luck this week because we will be on Twitch this week. Weekend. Not even tomorrow, because this comes up Wednesday.
This one's going up Wednesday?
That's all we have this week.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so this upcoming Saturday in a few days, check out our Twitch, Bald and Board Games. We will be playing Inventions, which is our 4th Lacerda game. So you can live watch it. You won't see the live how-to. That'll be just for YouTube.
Yep.
So tune back in next week for that video. But this week you can come watch the playthrough.
Yes. Good fun. And that'll be at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, in case you are watching this from a different coast. Or the same coast and want to know when we're doing it. But tune into our Instagram at Bald and Board Games as well, and our Discord at Bald and Board Games if you really want to know what's going on and keep up with what we're doing, what we're planning on playing, and to tell us what you want us to play. Send us a message anytime. Let us know. We will find a way to get the game and get it on board.
It's true.
All right. All set?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this How to Play of Weather Machine by Vital Lacerda and Eagle-Gryphon Games. I'm Bored.
I'm Bald.
Watch out for the weather. I don't know.
It's Groundhog Day.